It was such a great group, very talented, very gung-ho, and but the whole spirit of the movie was very different with the power loader and all those things, and it wasn't as creepy. It was more, you know, aerobic. But it was a good group. We had a lot of fun, and I got to meet Carrie Henn, and that was great working with her.
Carrie Henn, who played Newt, and Sigourney Weaver as Ripley, were the final two actors that were involved in almost all of the visual effects photography. The blue screen, the front screen projection. And so it really was down to those two characters in the final weeks of the shoot.
She and I really bonded because everyone left us, and we used to always joke and say we were the orphans nobody wanted. You know, we were left there, they did all the parts that everyone was there, and then they left and we did all of our parts for a couple months after that. And she would do different things with me, and like our dressing rooms were right next door to each other. And her husband would come and visit every once in a while. I knew she would be sad when he left, and so I'd bring her flowers to work. For me, it wasn't as big a deal. I just didn't see my family every single day. I just would see them on the weekends. And sometimes my brother was allowed to have off of school for a week, and he'd come up and spend time on the set.
There was an incredible bond by the end of the film between Sigourney and Carrie, especially given that Carrie had no experience as an actor prior to doing Aliens. She hadn't even, from my recollection, appeared in a school play, and yet she was so perfect as Newt.
I remember one scene, and it was at the beginning when Sigourney first found me, and I'm in my little nest, as they called it, and I had all this stuff around me and everything. And that was the only scene. I remember Chris was on set at the time, and James Cameron would not let my brother or my mom anywhere near it because my mom was always there where I could see her, and she wasn't allowed to be there because I had to feel like I had no one. And it was amazing how I did feel that way just because knowing my mom wasn't just right there. They were offset, and they were allowed to come on after that. But I remember I was kind of upset.
We'll be all right now.
Easy. Easy.
The cocoon part, that was probably one of the most tedious parts of filming that we had. It was all made out of fiberglass, and we had to do everything except the actual breaking apart of it over and over and over again, and all they had was this little tiny hole, and I'd have to crawl through the hole, and there was like a wooden stool covered with the fiberglass, and I'd have to sit on that, and I couldn't actually rest myself, like my feet on any part of it, because it might break it, and they couldn't redo it again exactly how it was. So I'd have to sit there, and then I'd crawl out, and that took days, and with all the slime, which took forever to clean off, it was horrible. And then Sigourney, when she actually had to rip it off, she had to do it just right so that we got it done right the first time, and she cut her hands all up with the fiberglass and everything. So it was really bad.
Grab onto me! Hold on! Newt! God! Newt!
That was another scene that kind of lasted forever. Actually going down the chute part was the coolest. They had made a sign and they hung it on the chute that said, adults 1 pound, children 50p. And I would love just when I'd hang up the top and then I'd get to go down. It was this huge, like 3-story chute, and it had like a little bend in it and had a big old mat at the bottom. So sometimes I would kind of mess up a little bit on purpose so that I could go down and come right back up and try it again, until James Cameron caught on to that and said, you know, we really have to get going with this scene. And then the water was a completely different time. And that was pretty bad just because the first assistant director and I were really close, and he didn't want the water to be cold. And so they filled it up the night before, and he made someone stay on set 24 hours to make sure it stayed warm. Only it was too warm. So I'd be in it, and I could only stay in it for a certain amount of time because it was so hot. I'd have to get back out and then get back in.
She really had to show fear, especially in the scene when you know, the alien rises up. And she was completely convincing. We also wanted to make sure that psychologically, considering this is a pretty dark and scary movie, we didn't have CGI characters that were added in later on. I mean, she was in there in pretty terrifying situations. We had long discussions with her parents and with her about whether or not she would in any way be traumatized by the experience. And she was perfectly fine, and she realized it was all make-believe.
Part of the thing was James Cameron said I had to watch Alien before we did anything to do with aliens as far as filming. And so I watched it, but I think I was 8 at the time, I didn't think it was scary. I thought it was funny. I was laughing at it the whole time.
Here we go. Mike Heavyside, stop telling stories and just pay attention. Fill the bin. Hold that smoke. Close the doors, please. Here we go, and roll! Camera!
4 and 2, take 1, A&D cameras. Second clap after full stop.
And action!
I was a big gun control person, and when I read Aliens again, I got it while I was shooting 2 other films, so I read it very quickly, and I have this bad tendency to skip stage directions. So it wasn't till suddenly I get on the set one day and I get handed this huge gun, and everyone has these huge guns. And I said, where did these guns come from? And Jim Cameron looked at me like, what? And he said, didn't you read the script? I said, yeah, but I don't remember. And of course, there's this long stage direction where it goes into detail about all the gun things. And that was tough, because I think that real strength and unpredictability comes from not having an obvious weapon.
Cut it!
Sigourney, well, so what can one say? I mean, I did Sigourney on the film.